So this session is actually a book launch. The name of the book is Borderlines by Sehba, Sarwar. So the moderator for this session is Mr. Ghazi Salahuddin. Mr. Ghazi Salahuddin is a senior journalist, writer, literary figure and political analyst. He studied and graduated from the Karachi University. Mr. Salahuddin was the first editor of The News, Karachi. He writes columns in English for The News and in Urdu for Jang. He has been associated with a number of television programs. He has also served as the president of the Karachi Press Club in 2006. The session is yours now, sir.
शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत. इसमें थोड़ी सी तस्हीह है. अब भेजा था इन्होंने मुझे, मैंने अपनी काहली में, आई एम नॉट ए ग्रेजुएट. आई यूज्ड टू गो टू द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कराची एंड वाज ए स्टूडेंट ऑफ द कैंटीन डिपार्टमेंट. But let us move forward, and we are here launching these, we call it a book launch, but these are two magazines or book magazines like we have in Urdu. किताबी सिलसिला हमारे यहाँ उर्दू में जो होता है कि खुद आसिफ फरुखी दुनियाज़ाद निकालते हैं इसी तरह का. तो दिस इज़ बॉर्डरलाइंस. और ये काम किया है हमारी जो सहबा सरवर हैं. सहबा सरवर का भी एक रिश्ता है. सहबा सरवर, ज़किया सरवर, मोहम्मद सरवर, बीना सरवर, सहबा सरवर. तो ये भाई भी है. लेकिन वो जो नाम फेमिलियर हैं हमारे लिए, और जिसका यानी जो एक मूवमेंट रही है, जो एक तहरीक रही है जिसमें इनकी पार्टिसिपेशन रही है. तो ये शी इज़ अ राइटर एंड मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी आर्टिस्ट. हर स्टोरीज, एसेज एंड पोएम्स स्ट्रेडल साउथ एशिया एंड द यूएस. ये जो हम जैसे इमिग्रेंट्स की तकदीर है आपके, एक दफ़ा नहीं, दो दफ़ा नहीं, कई दफ़ा हमें हिजरतें करनी पड़ती हैं और सरहदों को अबूर करना पड़ता है. और हम अपने आप को इधर से भी, यहाँ से भी कुछ लेके अपने साथ जीते हैं, वहाँ से भी कुछ लेके अपने साथ जीते हैं. एंड सो her writings have appeared in anthologies, newspapers, magazines in India, Pakistan, and the US, in publications including Asia, Magazine of Asian Literature, the New York Times Sunday Magazine, and Kalalu.
It's a magazine, and it's a very radical magazine.
Wonderful. Her novel Black Wings was published in 2004, while her videos and installations have been screened in Egypt, India, Pakistan, and the US. Sehba serves as artistic director, founder for Voices Breaking Boundaries, a 15-year-old Houston-based multidisciplinary arts organization, and is working on a variety of projects, including her memoir. When we begin, she will make the presentation that will, in a sense, set the stage for this session. Now I have to introduce a very distinguished person. Bilkul, we are fortunate to have her, Noor Zahir, in this session, and that gives a depth and meaning to the discussion itself because she comes from across the frontier. And she is a writer and researcher, writing in English, Hindi, and Urdu. Her published works include My God is a Woman. My God. Oh my God. My God is a Woman, and Aaj Ke Naam, a biography of Faiz Ahmad Faiz. Her recent research includes tribal and Buddhist oral traditions of northwestern Himalayas, compilation and translation of early women writing in Urdu, 4 volumes of short fiction, poetry, drama, and non-fiction prose, and Buddhist and Sufi elements in Baul mysticism. She is the recipient of the Times Fellowship for Research. It's a Department of Culture of the Government of India, and is a writer in residence at the Sahitya Academy, Delhi. Noor is at the KLF a book launch, Kaghzi Hai Pehrahan by Ismat Chughtai, which she has translated. Another thing that I had sought her permission to say that she is daughter of Sajjad Zahir, a very distinguished name in the progressive movement of South Asia. And कागजी है पहरन
कल है ना? Sorry,
कल
कल.
launch
कल
है
जी
सर,
जी
शाम
अच्छा
को जी, 6.
and next to Noor is Naila Mahmood, and she is a graphic designer and a documentary photographer. She teaches at Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture. Naila is also the coordinator for the Wasl Artists Collective, and then she is also someone who is very creative and been has been an activist in these causes. And then we have Tehmeena Ahmed, and she is a journalist, photographer, and documentary filmmaker. She worked as an advertising copywriter and creative director before switching to journalism. Tehmeena is co-founder at Newsline Publications and currently heads Newsline Films. She has an interest in poetry and creative nonfiction. Tehmeena has published poems, essays, and articles in Pakistani literature, International Gallery, Nukta, Newsline, and Daily Dawn, Herald, and other publications. She translated a selection of verse by Zishan Sahil into English in a volume entitled On the Outside. Tehmeena has also solo and group shows of photography in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and the USA. And she has been writing and producing documentaries. And there is a relationship issue here, but रहने दें चले वो रहने देते हैं
बाद में हो जाएगी.
बाद में हो जाएगी. Let's begin with Sehba. Sehba will has a PowerPoint to.
So I wanted to just talk about, I'm really excited to actually be here at KLF to launch Voices Breaking Boundaries, Borderlines. I'm very happy to be given credit for the publication. It's put together by a whole team of editors, graphic design artists. And I just want to give you a short history of the organization, Voices Breaking Boundaries, and our Borderlines project. I began the organization in 2000 as a literary collective. Our logo is the globe viewed from upside down. Over the years, VBB has curated readings, art installations, film series, and we do a lot of artwork in residential homes in Houston. After September 11th, in 2001, our work became much more political. Through the work that we produce, we explore parallels between Pakistan, South Asia, and the US, and many Pakistan-based artists have participated in our productions and our publications. Some of the issues that we have explored include women's rights, both in Houston and Karachi, especially as extremism is on the rise, not just here, but over there, which people don't talk about. In 2013, through a National Endowment for the Arts, Voices Breaking Boundaries, jisko hum log kehte hain, VBB, increased our initiatives and we began publishing our first books. Again, writers from Houston and Karachi contributed, Zohra Yusuf, Hilda Saeed, Atiya Daoud. And then we added art from our production. So for all the shows that we did, we included the art from that and to create catalogs. So isko hum log catalogs kehte hain. The very next year, I expanded VBB's focus to go beyond Karachi and Houston to forge connections between border regions, South Asia, and North America. And that is the project called Borderlines, which is what we are celebrating today. Over the past 2.5 years, more than 30 artists from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Mexico, Canada, and the US-Mexico border have participated in Voices Breaking Boundaries, Borderlines productions. Some of the visual artists include Naila Mahmood, who's here, Veer Munshi in Delhi, Wasl, and Tayyaba Lipi Begum in Bangladesh. VBB's Borderlines initiatives includes publications with writings, interviews, and art. This year, VBB steps into 16 years, and I'm still in shock about that, of creating original art. And even as we break past national borders and tackle contemporary issues such as immigration, race, and equity. The Borderlines publications, like I said, are created by a whole team, editors, layout artists, and I am the one who visualizes the project and suggests the writers, and then everybody steps in. In volume 1, we feature an essay by Tehmeena Ahmed, which she will read from today, mixed with an image by Shobir Hat, an arts collective in Dhaka. Like I said, this is an art catalog, so it's a mix of images and text. Also in volume 1 is an interview with a Mexican arts collective called Asaro, alongside an interview with them. And then there's an essay by a Mexican-American writer on the US-Mexico border, and there's an image by a Bangladeshi artist installed along the India-Pakistan border called No Man's Land. Bapsi Sidhwa, who is based in Houston, has been very active with our organization. Her essay is here alongside a performance in a Houston home. And in volume 2, an essay by Noor Zahir, which she will read from today, is published with a photograph from a performance in Borderlines. And then there's a photo essay by Naila Mahmood, also which she will read from, and you will see some of the images. And then inside the books, you will also see stories that I collected from immigrant and undocumented, jisko kaha jata hai, illegal people in the US, women, children, and I collected those stories. So those images, that text, those stories are in the book, along with a photo series about child labor in Bangladesh by artist Sadia Mizan, who is in Dhaka. Voices Breaking Boundaries launch at KLF is our first international launch, and we are really, really excited about it. The books are available by Liberty Books right down outside, and they will carry it after KLF also. And this is a test. We want to see if we can create an interest in South Asia. Ab tak to we've been working only in the US, and we were hoping for similar opportunities, similar launches in India, Bangladesh, Canada, and of course along the US-Mexico border. So.
शुक्रिया सहबा. जिस तरह आपने कंसीव किया था, तो अभी रीडिंग्स होंगी.
बिल्कुल.
तो हम नूर ज़हीर से शुरू करें.
बिल्कुल.
बिल्कुल.
दोस्तों, ये बाउल म्यूज़िक के बारे में है. बाउल पे मेरा अभी जैसे इंट्रोडक्शन में आपने सुना कुछ काम है थोड़ा बहुत. I begin. Why am I here? Having grown up in an atmosphere of non-belief, savoring the space it gave me the freedom to question, to travel alone at 18 to Himalayas, wear a sari and a bindi to enter Hindu temples that barred entry to Hindus, to non-Hindus, to point my finger and laugh at the absence of reason and logic in belief, amused at friends, performed rituals in hope of gains. How materialistic can spiritualism be? I said to myself, confident in my atheism, and that opened for me the roads that led from the midst of mainstream religions to tribal oral culture. I, who had shaken my head in sorrow at Buddhism that moved from initial atheism to iconic worship. Didn't I always accept that Sufis danced and sang in defiance of the forbidden? For me, belief and religion are intoxicants. So, why are you here? My heart questioned as my eyes took in the details of the ritual, and my brain filtered and filed it for further inquiry. The dead one is bestowed a shroud at the initiation to Baul life. A thin screen of an old sari is drawn, and the young woman disappears behind it to change into a kafan. She emerges having broken all bonds, done away with her past life, and is dead. She is welcomed amongst the dead who celebrate the body. The belief being Baul is not born, he or she is made. And anyone with a wandering lust can become one. It is an eclectic spirituality, reaching out to a simple, natural, direct approach to the most easily available source of joy, the body. To pilgrimages have I been, wanderings led to many a shrines. Nowhere a tomb have I seen, blissful as this body mine. The female Baul shall now wander alone, decide to commit herself to a man for a while, beget children. They shall then sing and dance together. One day the man might move on forever, or the woman might do so, to reappear after a few years. He might find her with another man. No matter. Is she happy? Is she still wandering, searching, learning, imbibing? The worry is if she is still loyal to waywardness. All else is a means of making discoveries. So is this why I am here? Even in the leftists, I have found patriarchy. The patriarchal leftists, the superior ones who have the right to grant equality to the female. I am quickly accepted at Mane Hermanos, a stop in the wanderings of the Baul mystics of Bengal in India and Bangladesh. They are both Vaishnav Hindus and Sufi Muslims, but have no trouble accepting me, a non-believer, because the cult allows freedom of travel across borders, from one belief to another without complications. The celebration is life and not of identity. As Halim Faqir explains to me, God is hidden in one's heart. Prophets, priests, rituals, religions are obstructions in realizing that God. One no longer seeks because one has found. For this alone, one can be blissful. In this ashram, music dominates the day, rules the night. In this ashram, I find that each one has conducted an individual search. What is found is his or hers alone, and on this road to discovery is born a syncretic sect, a rich musical tradition ranging from the classical ragas to the folk tunes, delving into lyrical poems of oral literature to come up with new interesting explanations for the mundane. The relationship is described thus: you own not your own body. Your heart is a wanderer, the mind long set free. How then possess another being? In a world that is continuously redefining itself and its borders, races, nations, and organized religions, Baul is an elixir to find that negation of all that is acceptable is possible. That there is a road that leads nowhere. Travel is possible without a quest, and that journey can be the destination.
Thank you, Noor Zahir. The journey can be the destination. This gives you a flavor of what borderlines are about, because one of the purposes is to explore parallels between two border regions. And next, Naila, will you read from something?
I will read. I'll read the introduction
That.
so that, yeah.
Thank you, Naila.
Yeah. So this work is part of an ongoing work with the Bengali community in Karachi. And this particular piece was done about 3.5 years ago. And it was part of the VBB, the Voices Breaking Boundaries 2013 exhibition, which was called the Exploring Rituals. So I'm going to read parts of an excerpts from the introduction and from the story of one case study in the, in a current world with its militarized borders, uneven economies, and xenophobic policies, there are millions of people who live in a state of perpetual involuntary exile, that is statelessness. Before 1971, present-day Pakistan and Bangladesh were two provinces of a federal entity called Pakistan. The bloody war that resulted in Bangladesh's independence in 1971 stranded population on both sides of the border. Thousands of Bengali residents of Pakistan chose to stay in Pakistan. The 1970s and 80s following the war saw a continuous influx of Bengalis into Pakistan from Bangladesh in search of better lives. Most were illegally trafficked into the port city of Karachi. Pakistan's National Aliens Registration Authority, which is NARA, numbers the Bengalis in Karachi at 1.1 million. Bengali social activists in Karachi, however, put the number close to 3 million. Literature published by NARA on the legal status of Bengalis states that the government of Pakistan maintains that all Bengalis are aliens according to the law. In contrast, ethnic Afghanis, Biharis, and Burmese have been given refugee status. Owing to all of this, Bengalis in Pakistan are in a socially vulnerable position, structurally excluded from stable jobs, education, land ownership, and free movement. These people live between two worlds, neither of which they belong to. They are involuntary refugees who are denied both the dignity and security of a national identity and the legal protections of a citizenship. And then I am going to read a part of a case study of a woman called Mumtaz Begum, who actually was born here. So in the labyrinthine slums of Jetline Lines area, under the canopy of exposed kunda wires and open sewers, Mumtaz Begum sits in her dank, poorly lit kitchen, curling ribbons of fabric into flowers. Now, these are the people who make flowers as a means of income, little fabric flowers at home. By the end of the day, she will have made 300 flowers and earned a mere 100 rupees. Of the many afflictions that plague Mumtaz's life, there are three that she will never escape. That she's a woman, she's poor, and she is a Bengali in Pakistan. Then I will actually... Bengali households, like the one to which Mumtaz belonged, have to seek alternate forms of employment since employers are reluctant to hire job applicants who lack legal documents. This predicament perpetuates the vicious cycle of poverty within the community. Although education is a passage out of this cycle, it is often unattainable as the children of these families do not have national identity cards, or what they call the BA forms, and thus cannot attend high school, which is 9th and metric. Some have opted to marry Afghan refugees, which gives them some form of legal status. Flower making in these homes affords a meager source of funding for women and unemployed men. Flower making involves tedious hours of hunched-over labor for scant compensation. Through an informal network of suppliers and middlemen, flower makers earn 25 to 45 cents per 100 flowers, depending on the size and intricacy of the finished flower. Most have never seen the adorned final products their labor produces as it moves up the value chain. The finished products range from children's dresses to decorative embellishments on shoes, hairbands, purses, and ribbons. They are either sold in the cities of South Asia or exported to the Middle East and Far East Asia. The vibrant colors of their flowers, unfortunately, are absent from the somber reality of their lives and from the narrow lanes that enclose them.
Thank you, Naila. And these are the alternative voices that we are hearing in this session. And now, may I ask Tahmina to give the reading from Harar.
So, this is an essay called Crossing Over, and I'll just read some excerpts from it. 9 years. It had been 9 years since I crossed the notorious and often bullet-ridden border between India and Pakistan. But it was not for want of trying. The love affair between those so-called enemies, Indians and Pakistanis, is a star-crossed affair, although it refuses to die out altogether. There is something narcissistic about it, perhaps. For where else in another country will you find people who are so much your own, and yet different? 67 years ago, the British drew a line in the sand. Partition. Muslims walk this way, Hindus, Sikhs go the other way. Bengal and Punjab were torn asunder. I grew up on tales of Delhi because my mother went to school and college there. It's been a long time, yet she speaks of it as if it were yesterday. Growing up, I had many opportunities to travel to India to go to various places, but it was always flying from Karachi to Bombay, to Delhi, to Ahmedabad. Last year, with a group of friends from Lahore, we were going to a yoga ashram in South India. We decided to just walk across the border from Lahore. Nothing quite prepares you for the experience of simply walking across Pakistan into India and vice versa. In The Sky Below, a documentary on partition, the filmmaker Sera Singh asks a farmer trudging across the green fields of Punjab, Pakistan kithe ve? Where is Pakistan? Othe, he says with a vague gesture. Over there, just away across, the line in the sand invisible. It was like that. Perhaps all borders are equally arbitrary. But this border separates nuclear powers that have fought 2 wars in the recent past, thankfully not pressing the button but doing everything short of that. 2 nations sworn to otherness on the basis of ideology. How then can they be so much one? Well, we walked across the border and then took the road to Amritsar. On the shop fronts and road signs, the Punjabi surnames, the castes are the same. Chima, Sandhu. The lush green fields raise the same crops, but this is another country. Something one does notice is a change in the way women hold themselves. Their body language is less furtive somehow. Riding a bicycle, minding a shop counter, sitting on a takht in the middle of the bazaar, they seem surer of their place in the world. At the ashram, there is no war on. Although everyone follows a strict schedule, there are plenty of breaks where the North Indians, as usual, tend to clump together to gossip and pass the time. Only some of the North Indians are Pakistani. Workshop over, we head back the way we came. At Delhi airport, waiting for the Amritsar flight, we come across acquaintances from Lahore, an elderly lady and her daughter. The family belongs to one of the princely states of India and had opted to cross the border at partition. The daughter grew up in Lahore but married into a branch of the family that chose to stay in India. She's accompanying her mother, who's going home after a visit, just up to the border post. We share a vehicle from Amritsar to Atari and promise to help with customs and immigration formalities. The border begins to harden as soon as we step out of the vehicle and take the steps up to the immigration hall. Mother and daughter exchange glances and reluctantly part. Halfway up the steps, the daughter suddenly darts up to clasp her mother from the back. "One last hug," she says, before turning back. "It's very difficult to part with a daughter," says the old lady, turning to me, her voice choked. The tears she's holding back find their way to my eyes. The guards at the gate have witnessed this parting before. It may have happened many times, but it never gets easier. "She'll come back in a while to see that her mother's all right," says one of the guards. But this time, the mother has the 3 of us to see her through the forms and formalities. "She won't be back," I say. And we turn our backs on India to step into Pakistan.
Thank you, Tahmina. And even though borderlines is about parallels between 2 regions across a border and has a global kind of concern, but Tahmina's writing and the piece she read is very close to all of us, and I think we'll have some observations on that after Sehba has read her piece.
So I'm reading an excerpt from my essay called That Long Monday Afternoon. This lifelong loss led to the creation, actually, of Voices Breaking Boundaries art installations in homes, and I did a big installation at my house in Houston after this. So, and it's very different from the other pieces you've heard. It is not exclusively about this region. It's about loss. That long Monday afternoon, I need to be still in Houston and work on my novel, I tell myself. I do not plan to spend a month in Karachi during the summer of 2009, but I know a phone call could change my decision. And my sister does telephone me on the Sunday before the May Memorial Day holiday, telling me he's weak and feeling pain in his stomach. And in that moment, I know that the 6 months of fighting cancer that my father was able to extend into 2 years might be drawing to a close soon. The next morning, my pulse races faster than usual. I ask my husband, Rene, to drop me at the office even though the day is a public holiday. I feel an urgency to wrap up work in case I have to be on an airplane to be somewhere else. Once I quell the noise inside my office, the hallways are hollow. And even though the sun shines outside, I have to flip on light switches as I navigate to my desk. Once seated, I turn on my laptop, pondering the stacks of papers to sort. Through the glazed windows, I see a blurry line of oak trees shading Allen Parkway. A woman in a t-shirt and shorts braves the heat to jog towards the bayou. But inside the building, I feel as if slabs of ice are stacked beneath my desk. Around me, no phones ring, no one talks, and no feet shuffle. I am alone. I don't remember if I got any work done that afternoon or how long I sat in the office. But I do remember when my mobile phone rings. The number registers as that of my Karachi home. My first thought is that it is 3 a.m. in Karachi. My sister says there was no pain. He went in his sleep. He had a Reiki session, kissed me goodnight, and then I went upstairs. My mother takes the phone. I spent an hour with him before going to sleep, she says. He was breathing well, and he talked coherently till the end. I wanted to stay with him longer, but he told me to go to bed, and I did. It was our Mali, Ahmed Sher, who found him. He woke me up to tell me that Sahab wasn't breathing anymore. We cry into our telephones, feeling as if the space between us has melted away. In that moment, I am in Karachi, in the white heat, listening to the whistling manna bird and inhaling the scent of early morning jasmine, a vine my mother planted along the driveway with the Mali's help. Even though our passports are valid and Renee and our 5-year-old daughter Minal have Pakistani visas, there is not enough time for us to scramble on an airplane and make the 24-hour journey to reach Karachi in time for the funeral, which is planned in accordance with the custom to bury before sunset. As I book tickets and make arrangements to meet with my brother in New York so we can fly together, our Karachi family makes burial arrangements, selects a gravesite, decide on ceremonies, and announce the gathering in our home, rituals to which we never gave any thought. Not even 2 years ago when we learned my father had cancer, that it had metastasized, and the doctor gave him 6 months. That night, I leave my phone ringer on in case my mother can fulfill my wish to see him one more time. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, Houston time, this time, 12 hours after our first call, I wake up to my mother's voice on my phone. In 1 hour, they will start washing his body, she says. You can see him now. I race to my study. Once again alone, now in my familiar, dimly lit room, I turn on my laptop, hang up the phone, and call my sister on Skype. When she answers, we stare at each other through the screens. She lifts her laptop and turns it toward him so I can see his profile. His nose seems sharper and his mouth is closed, almost as if he was smiling. My mother's face appears next to my sister's, and we cry into each other's eyes. For 1 quiet hour that seems to stretch for days, my mother and I sit with each other in front of our computer screens, not talking, just gazing at each other all the time, with my father lying behind my mother, his body draped in a white blanket, and my mother in a white camise. Only the hum of her air conditioning unit emanates through the computer speakers. My sister reappears. They're coming to wash him. You'll need to say goodbye. My cheeks are wet again. Before disappearing into the kitchen or the drawing room, my sister carries her laptop into the open lobby and hands her computer to my cousin. One by one, the rest of my cousins, aunts, and friends greet me on the screen, offer condolences, and send love. Through the microphone, I hear metal pots being scraped and water taps running in the kitchen. Later, after sunset, after his body is laid in the new gravesite, tea and samosas will be served in our living room and garden, and friends and family will share stories about him, and there will be laughter. Thank you.
बहुत अच्छा.
Thank you, Sehba. Very touching, very subjective, and an experience that also in some ways underlines the when you talk about borders and divisions, I think a new dimension is how children are now settled abroad and separated from their families. And Tamino also underlined the experience of living in these two countries that are similar but are divided by barbed wires. Before we go to the audience, I think یہ لوگ اتنے اچھے یہاں بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, ضرور آپ سے کچھ پوچھیں گے, لیکن میں نور ظہیر آپ سے پوچھنا چاہتا ہوں. یو رائٹ ان انگلش, in Urdu, in Hindi, and you are very proficient in these three languages. When you write in Urdu, do you have some emotional kind of underlying current of this language being the language of Pakistan, and even though it's your mother tongue?
No, not of Pakistan, but definitely a concern that this is a beautiful language which is slowly sort of on the backtide. You know, it's being neglected. It's being not read so much. It's not being so much is not being written, and so much good literature is not being produced. And there's always this concern that schools में नहीं पढ़ाई जा रही है तो लोग कैसे पढ़ेंगे. जबकि मेरे ख्याल से ज़बान बाद में भी जब हम लोग सीखते हैं, फ्रांसीसी सीखते हैं, तो इसलिए नहीं कि हम साइंस उसमें पढ़ सकें या नहीं कर सकें, बल्कि ये कि हम उसमें अच्छा अदब पढ़ सकें. So that concern is definitely there when I write in Urdu. That is why most of my work I almost immediately myself transcribe to Devanagari and insist on it that we keep the same language, the same words, and we do not translate the words. We keep the essence of Urdu.
ट्रांसलिटरेशन कहते हैं.
जी जी, ट्रांसलिटरेशन कह सकते हैं. तो उसमें ये कोशिश होती है कि वो ज़बान बरकरार रहे, भले ही उसका ख़त बदल जाए.
अच्छा, ये असल तो यहाँ पे इशू है जब बॉर्डर्स की बात होती है. जैसे तहमीना ने कहा कि तो आर्बिट्रेरी लकीरें हैं जो कोई खींच देता है. और ये बताएं कि जो शेंगन एक्सपीरियंस है उससे कोई और दुनिया के इलाके सीख सकते हैं, कुछ है? तहमीना आप बताएं.
बिल्कुल सीख सकते हैं. I mean, if we can overcome these huge barriers which really who has erected, not the people. If we can get over that, why not?
नायला आप बताइए कि जो आपकी कम्युनिटी है आर्टिस्ट की और जो क्रिएटिव काम करते हैं, आई थिंक रिसेंटली देयर हैज़ बीन अ लॉट ऑफ इंटरेक्शन. वुड दैट हेल्प इन सम रिमूविंग सम ऑफ दीज बायसेस? एंड
अभी थोड़े आर्टिस्ट इस KLF में आए हुए भी हैं थ्रू दिस, एंड वी ऑल फील वेरी स्ट्रांगली कि जो आप आर्ट और कल्चर के थ्रू जो बात की जा सकती है, और यू नो फेमिलियरिटी जो है दैट काइंड ऑफ ब्रीड्स एक्सेप्टेंस. तो वो जो फेमिलियरिटी है, अब बॉलीवुड हैज़ प्लेड अ रोल इन इट, नॉट एंड दैट्स टू बी क्वेश्चनड व्हाट काइंड ऑफ रोल दैट वाज इज, बट यू नो लेकिन if that can be done, then you know this kind of exchanges can, but then we have to also see कि ये जो सारा bureaucratic red tape है, visas deny होने का, ये होने का, तो वो definitely hinges. But we have been talking about doing Skype workshops, and and there was a time that we did that. We did that with India कि हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे Skype पे setup किया था, and we were working together on the same, and जो उसका result निकला, we just put it up online. So I mean these kind of things still can happen. हर तरह के,
क्योंकि हाँ, एक और बात जहन में आती है कि जो पार्टीशन की जो दुख था, या जो एक डिस्प्लेसमेंट के जो एक्सपीरियंस था, वो अब उसको तो 70 साल होने को आए हैं और 2-3 जनरेशन्स नई आ गई हैं. आज की जनरेशन जो है, क्या उस दुख को उस तरह महसूस करती है, किस तरह महसूस करती है? हाउ डज दिस जनरेशन रिलेट टू दैट एक्सपीरियंस? آپ میں سے کوئی بتائے یعنی
دیکھیں اب مجھ سے یو نو آئی واز بورن ہیئر ریزڈ ہیئر بٹ ابھی بھی دوست کہتے ہیں کہ یہ حیدرآباد سے ہیں مجھے تو یو نو آئی مین دیر از دس کنٹینیوٹی you know that kind of heritage sort of continues. So you know, and how our parents came here, خیر میں تو I'm just a second generation, but آپ یہ سوال اگر ہمارے بچوں سے پوچھیں تو کہ how they came here, what we ate, what the language we spoke, ہم لوگ کیوں مہاجر کہا جاتا ہے ہمیں you know ابھی تک ہم تو وہ I mean that thing you carry over.
اچھا وہ چل رہا ہے. میرے خیال میں ہمارے پاس صرف 15 منٹ باقی ہیں اینڈ آئی تھنک وی شوڈ گو ٹو دی آڈینس. اگر آپ میں سے کوئی گفتگو کر سکیں. یہ آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ تھوڑا سا یعنی فوکس جو ہے وہ بلرڈ سا تھا اور کئی باتیں ایک ساتھ ہوئی ہیں اور بارڈر کمیونٹیز کی بات ہوئی ہے, پرسنل ایکسپیرینسز کی بات ہے, لیکن بارڈر لائنز کی کا جو تھیم ہے اس کو ذہن میں رکھ کر اگر آپ کوئی کامنٹ کرنا چاہیں, کوئی آبزرویشن ہو آپ کی, کوئی سوال ہو, کوئی شعر سنانا چاہیں, بتائیے. جی جی رشید صاحب.
اسلم خواجہ میرا نام ہے.
جی
پارٹیشن جو ہے 47 کا اس کو موسٹلی ہندوؤں نے آج کے پاکستان سے انڈیا مائیگریٹ کیا اور آج کے انڈیا سے مسلمانوں نے مائیگریٹ کیا, اس طرف کے اس میں تناظر میں دیکھا جاتا ہے. کچھ کمیونٹیز ہیں جیسے ہم اگر سندھ اور راجستھان گجرات کی اگزامپل لے لیں تو گجرات میں سندھی مسلمس ہیں, پاکستان کے تھر میں سندھی ہندوز ہیں. یہ جو ان لوگوں کے جو ایکسپیرینسز ہیں پوسٹ پارٹیشن ان پہ کوئی اسٹڈی ہے, اس کو کبھی آپ نے ٹچ کیا؟
میرے خیال میں یہ سوال تو صحبہ سے ہوگا, لیکن میں بالکل آپ نے صحیح کہا. ایک تو یہ ہوتا ہے کہ بارڈر کے دونوں طرف ایک ہی طرح کی کمیونٹیز ہوتی ہیں, ایک ہی طرح کا کلچر ہوتا ہے, اکثر ایک ہی مذہب کے لوگ ہوتے ہیں اگر, اور اگر مائیگریشن ہو جائے تب بھی وہ جو بارڈر کے دونوں طرف جو اسٹریڈل کرتے ہیں, ایک اسٹریچ ہوتا ہے بارڈر کا, تو وہ اس میں ایک ہی طرح کے لوگ ہوتے ہیں. آپ کے سوال میں ایک اور بھی سوال ہے کہ اس مائیگریشن نے مائنورٹیز کریٹ کی ہیں دونوں ملکوں میں ایسی کہ جن کی زندگی پہ مائیگریشن کا کیا اثر ہوا ہے, پارٹیشن کا کیا اثر ہوا ہے, وہ بھی ایک دیکھنے کی چیز ہے. صحبہ آپ بتائیں کہ جو سوال تھا آپ کی.
آئی تھنک آپ کو اس کا جواب بھی معلوم ہے بیکاز آپ نے مجھے نندیتا بھونانی سے انٹروڈیوس کیا تھا اور ان کا مضمون بھی اس میں ہے, اس کتاب میں والیوم 2 میں ہے, اٹس کالڈ ری وزٹنگ سندھ. تو ہم سب نے ایکسرپٹس پڑھے ہیں اور اصل میں دس از ناٹ این اینتھروپولوجیکل ہسٹوریکل اسٹڈی. بارڈر لائنز از این آرٹسٹک ورک, یعنی کہ اس میں نظمیں ہیں, اس میں انٹرویوز ہیں, اس میں آرٹ ہے اور اس میں ایجنڈا نہیں ہے کہ ہم بس یہ کریں گے اور یہ دکھائیں گے. It is not an academic catalog. It's an artistic, it's an art catalog. تو اگر کسی نے اس میں کچھ دیکھ لیا اور خاص طور سے اس میں ہم نے تو آج صرف ساؤتھ ایشیا کے بارے میں لکھا, میں نے کچھ زیادہ پرسنل پیس شیئر کیا جس میں ایکچولی اف یو ریڈ دا ہول ایسے اٹ ایکسپلینس کہ وائسز بریکنگ باؤنڈریز میں کیا چینج آئی بیکاز آف دیٹ لاس. مگر آئی تھنک واٹ آئی وانٹ ٹو سے از کہ ان کتابوں میں میکسیکو کے بارے میں ہیں مضمون, نیٹو امریکن ایکسپیرینسز ہیں, اس میں آرٹ ہے. تو دس از اونلی اے اسمال ونڈو آف واٹ از ان دیز بکس. اینڈ آئی تھنک کہ میرا جو بگیسٹ ایجنڈا یہ تھا کہ میں دکھاؤں کہ یہ جو ایکسپیرینس ہم لوگ سمجھتے ہیں پارٹیشن کا کہ یہ صرف ہماری ایکسپیرینس ہے, یہ ہماری ایکسپیرینس نہیں ہے. یہ میکسیکو میں بھی لوگ بتاتے ہیں, کینیڈا میں بھی کہتے ہیں. وہی کہانیاں جو ہم کہتے ہیں وہی کہانیاں وہاں پہ ریپلیکیٹ ہو رہی ہیں. اگر ایجنڈا ہے تو یہ ہے ایک ایجنڈا.
نہیں, کیا یہ ایک ایجنڈا یہ ہے کہ یہ جو بارڈرز ہیں ان میں خاردار تاریں نہ ہوں, ये दीवारें ना हों, दरवाजे बन जाएं.
बिल्कुल, और हम लोग
अच्छा.
दरवाजे खोलते हैं इन किताबों के थ्रू, आर्टिस्टिक
अच्छा.
प्रोडक्शंस के थ्रू. हमारे पास पैसे नहीं है कि हम आर्टिस्ट को लाएं, मगर
जी.
हम फिर किताबें छापते हैं, इंस्टॉलेशंस करते हैं जिसमें आर्टिस्ट के काम आते
जी.
हैं इन सारे मुल्कों से.
आप कुछ कहना चाहती हैं? माइक है कहाँ? प्लीज़ दीजिए.
शहला नखवी, मुझे एक जो ख़ास चीज़ सुनाई दे रही है वो ये है कि देयर इज़ अ कंटिन्यूटी इन आइडेंटिटीज़. लोग अमेरिका में भी मैक्सिकन अमेरिकन रहते हैं, इटालियन अमेरिकन रहते हैं, जबकि उनकी जनरेशन्स गुजर जाती हैं. और इस तरह से हम लोगों को पाकिस्तान में महाजिर होने पे किसी किस्म की शर्मिंदगी नहीं होनी चाहिए कि हम यहाँ रहते हैं सिंध में तो सिंधी क्यों नहीं है, क्योंकि एक डबल आइडेंटिटी है. आप इटालियन अमेरिकन भी हो सकते हैं और महाजिर सिंधी भी हो सकते हैं. और जो हमारे अजीज़ पंजाब में सेटल्ड हैं वो बिल्कुल धड़ल्ले से महाजिर पंजाबी हैं, कि पंजाबी भी हैं वो बिल्कुल, और उसी तरीके से उनके घर के अंदर वो महाजिर भी हैं. तो ये कंटिन्यूटी ऑफ आइडेंटिटीज़ जो है, इसको जैसे आपने कहा खारदार बॉर्डर भी नहीं मिटा सकते, इनविजिबल बॉर्डर भी नहीं मिटा सकते, क्योंकि इट इज़ समथिंग इनसाइड ऑफ अस, और जिसको इतनी आसानी से हम एक कपड़े के तौर पर उतार के नहीं फेंक सकते. थैंक यू.
बहुत बहुत आपने प्रोफाउंड बात की है. और मेरे ख्याल में आप जी नहीं, अगर मैं इनसे रेस्पॉन्स ले लूँ नूर ज़हीर साहिबा से, कि आप ये समझती हैं कि जो आइडेंटिटीज़ हैं वो कहाँ पे ब्लर हो जाती हैं, कहाँ बदल जाती हैं, एंड दिस इशू ऑफ लिविंग विद एन आइडेंटिटी व्हेन यू माइग्रेट टू अदर प्लेसेस, उस क्या सूरत?
हाँ, डेफिनेटली. आप पिछले मेरे ख्याल से 25-30 सालों पे तो आइडेंटिटीज़ पे ज़्यादा ही तवज्जो रही है, और अलग तरह की हर तरह की आइडेंटिटीज़ उभरी हैं. एज अ मार्क्सिस्ट ऑफ कोर्स आई बिलीव इन अ बॉर्डरलेस वर्ल्ड एंड ड्रीम ऑफ दैट. वो एक अलग बात है, लेकिन आइडेंटिटीज़ हैं और उन आइडेंटिटीज़ को लोग कंडेम भी करते हैं और सेलिब्रेट भी करते हैं. और उसमें मेरे ख्याल से जैसे आपने कहा, कोई ना गिल्ट का एहसास होना चाहिए और ना ज़्यादा प्राइड का ये होना चाहिए. इट्स देयर.
हाँ, मेरे ख्याल में अगर आप बॉर्डरलेस वर्ल्ड की ख्वाहिश रखती हैं, हम सब रखते हैं, तो उसमें भी आइडेंटिटीज़ तो प्रोटेक्ट होती हैं. मैंने शेंगन का जिक्र किया.
हाँ,
शेंगन 26 मुल्क हैं यूरोप के जिन्होंने ये फैसला किया कि अब हमारे दरमियान कोई बॉर्डर नहीं होगा. लेकिन फ्रांसीसी हैं, इटालियंस हैं, जर्मन हैं, उनकी आइडेंटिटीज़ प्रोटेक्ट भी होती हैं, वो एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाके भी रहते हैं. लेकिन जो एक ऐसा माइग्रेशन होता है ना, कि जिसमें एक ये फैसला होता है कि अब हम वापस नहीं जाएंगे, वो क्या सूरत होती है? उसमें वो आइडेंटिटी कब चेंज होती है और कब तक उसको रखना चाहिए? कैन इट बी ए प्रॉब्लम पॉलिटिकली? इज इट कल्चरली? तो बिल्कुल सही है. लेकिन इफ दिस गिव्स राइज टू आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स, व्हाट हैपन्स? इज इट नेगेटिव? इज इट यूजफुल?
I think हम लोग the educated class has a different experience of crossing borders. जैसे नायला ने जो पीस शेयर किया था और जो उनका एक्सर्प्ट है और फोटोग्राफ्स हैं, she talks about a community that nobody talks about in Pakistan. This is a silenced voice. तो अगर ये लोग वापस जाना था, बंगाली community, you can talk to that if they want to go. You were telling me a story.
Yeah.
They can't go back.
They can't go
that
back.
That choice is not there.
Yeah.
हाँ,
You know?
बिल्कुल.
And right now they want to go. So
हाँ,
a lot of them want to go
हाँ,
back, but they cannot.
They cannot. बिल्कुल.
This crossing is so, and अगर आप US मेक्सिको बॉर्डर पे जाएं और आप देखें कि क्या हो रहा है इस बॉर्डर पे, कि मेक्सिको साइड पे thousands of लोग खड़े हुए हैं वहाँ पर, और दूसरी साइड पे मेक्सिको की साइड पे to cross, और on the American side you flash your blue passport and you cross.
हाँ.
It's a very different. It is about class. इंडिया की साइड पे आई वेंट टू द सिलेट बॉर्डर, इंडिया बांग्लादेश का, उसकी भी पीसेस हैं इन कैटलॉग्स में जो आप वहाँ लिबर्टी स्टॉल से ले सकते हैं ऑन डिस्काउंट. आई मस्ट से दिस बिकॉज आई एम सो प्राउड ऑफ दीज बुक्स. मगर इफ यू गो टू द सिलेट बॉर्डर ऑन इंडिया पाकिस्तान, वहाँ पर यू सी द इंडियन गार्ड्स सिटिंग इन posts with their guns aimed towards Bangladesh. You don't see Bangladeshi guards. اور جب کراس کرنے کی بات ہوتی ہے, جیسے ایک طیبہ لپی بیگم کا ایسے بھی ہے اور تصویریں بھی ہیں, بیوٹیفل پیس ان والیوم 2, اینڈ شی ٹاکس اباؤٹ کہ ہم نے یہ نو مینز لینڈ پروجیکٹ کیا اور ہم بس آرٹسٹ, انڈین آرٹسٹ سے ملنا چاہ رہے تھے بنگلہ دیش سے, اور ان کو بالکل آخر وقت پہ 1 گھنٹے کی اجازت ملی ٹو کراس انٹو انڈیا. سوچیں ذرا.
آپ کچھ کہنا چاہ رہے تھے جی پلیز.
Thank you, Ghazi Sahab. I am Dr. Tanveer. I work as a Chief Executive at HANDS, Pakistan. My question let me appreciate with all the speakers. My question with the Sehba, you, because my family is also migrated, not from India to Pakistan, but from Pakistan to USA, as many of Karachi has done. And the new generation is growing. So my question is about the new generation growth and development over there. For me, human development is the major. If it's positive, then the migration and the borders could be accepted. But if it's negative, then the migration and borders are not advantages at least. So what's your experience and what you have written in your book?
I don't know if I understand your question. You're saying, is it positive to be crossing over?
I'm asking you, what's your experience?
My experience is there is always a sense of displacement. مگر ہم لوگ پیدا ہی ہوئے تھے ڈسپلیسمنٹ کے ساتھ. جیسے میں میموار لکھ رہی ہوں جس میں میں نے اپنی والدہ کی بہت سارے انٹرویوز کیے ہیں اور ان کی انڈیا کی کہانیاں ریکارڈ کی ہیں. تو آئی تھنک کہ اگر موومنٹ ہو جاتا ہے, اور ہم سب کا موومنٹ ہے, آئی تھنک ہم سب کو سیکھنا چاہیے اپنی ہسٹری کے بارے میں, ہمیں آگے بھی بڑھنا چاہیے. میں ہیوسٹن میں بیٹھتی ہوں تو میں صرف پاکستانیوں کے ساتھ نہیں ملتی, میں سب لوگوں کے ساتھ ملتی ہوں. اینڈ therefore this magazine is the way it is. This book is, the catalogue is so broad, the vision. اس میں حرج نہیں ہے, مگر اس میں تکلیف بھی ہے اور اس میں خوشی بھی ہے, اور اس میں بس as you said, it is just the reality. I didn't go there to stay. It just happened. مگر میں ہمیشہ کہتی ہوں ہاں میں آ جاؤں گی, اور میں آتی رہتی ہوں, مگر ٹائم گزر رہا ہے.
جی ہاں نائلا,
I was just adding کہ اس میں ایک بہت اٹس اے ویری بیوٹیفل ایسے بائی اے میکسیکن جنہوں نے بات کی ہے کہ دیر ادر ایسپیکٹس آف یہ مائگریشنز وچ از, انہوں نے انکارسریشن سینٹرز جو ہیں ان کی بات کی ہے کہ جہاں پہ ڈیٹین کرتے ہیں, اینڈ دے آر پرائیویٹلی اونڈ, اینڈ ان کی اکانومی پوری کیسے چلتی ہے, اینڈ ہاؤ دے فلرش. The more strict the laws become, the more people, so there are so many layers to this. ہم بات کرتے ہیں of displacement, of memories, but there are so many layers to this.
بالکل اور بہت سی میرے خیال میں اسٹڈیز ہوئی ہیں, اور جیسے پاکستان اور ہندوستان کے بعد جس قسم کا مائگریشن ہوا اس کی نیچر کیا ہے, اور اب یہاں سے جو لوگ امریکہ جا کے وہاں رہ جاتے ہیں اس کی نیچر کیا ہے. اور اس میں میرے خیال میں آپ کے ان میگزینس میں بھی اس کے کئی اسپیکٹس ہوتے ہوں گے کہ جن پہ بات ہوئی ہے. لیکن مجھے یاد آتا ہے کہ بہت زمانہ ہوا, میں نے ایک سائیکیٹرسٹ تھے اور جو ریس ریلیشنس کے بھی ماہر تھے, میں نے ان سے بات کی تھی کہ سائیکالوجی آف مہاجرس کے بارے میں. تو اور باتوں کے علاوہ انہوں نے ایک بات کی تھی خاص, کہ دیکھیں لوگ جاتے ہیں تو یا تو پش فیکٹر ہوتا ہے کہ بھئی وہاں رہ نہیں سکتے, پریشانیاں ہیں, نکالے جا رہے ہیں, اور ایک پل فیکٹر ہوتا ہے کہ آپ کی اکنامک اپارچونیٹیز ہیں, کوئی جگہ کھینچ رہی ہے آپ کو اپنی طرف. انہوں نے کہا تھا کہ وہ لوگ جو پش فیکٹرز کی وجہ سے مائگریشن کرتے ہیں انہیں اپنا گھر وغیرہ بہت یاد آتا رہتا ہے, اور وہ یہ کہتے رہتے ہیں کہ اب ہم نے وہ دیار چھوڑ دیا, اب ہم یہیں کے ہو گئے ہیں نا, اب ہم کبھی واپس نہیں جائیں گے. اور جو پل فیکٹر سے جاتے ہیں وہ کہتے ہیں ہم تو کچھ دنوں کے لیے آئے ہیں, پھر ہمیں تو اپنا گھر, ہمیں تو جانا ہے واپس, ہم چلے جائیں گے واپس. وہ کہتے ہیں اس کے برعکس ہوتا ہے. جو پل فیکٹر کے حساب سے جاتے ہیں وہ کہتے رہتے ہیں ہم واپس جائیں گے, نہیں جاتے. جو پش فیکٹر کی وجہ سے جو نکالے جاتے ہیں کہیں سے, اگر ان کو کبھی موقع ملے تو they would be willing to go back, and it's a very strange kind of observation. تو بہرحال اگر کوئی کنکلوڈنگ بات کسی کو اچھی سی کہنی ہے تو وہ کہہ دے, کیونکہ وی آر ایٹ دی اینڈ آف. زبیدہ مصطفیٰ صاحبہ, آپ کچھ کہیں گی؟ نہیں, اور اس کو ذرا سا ایکسپاؤنڈ کر دیں. میں نے تو, میرا کہنا اتنا کافی نہیں ہے, پلیز.
نہیں, تھوڑا سا یہ ہے کہ جو اپنی خوشی سے جاتے ہیں, جس کو آپ نے فل فیکٹر کہا ہے, میرے خیال میں وہ یہ جو آئیڈینٹی کی بات ہو رہی تھی, ان کے لیے زیادہ آسان ہے وہاں وہ ہونا, یعنی لوگوں میں اسیملیٹ ہونا, اور کیونکہ وہ اپنی خوشی سے جاتے ہیں اور یہ سوچ سمجھ کے کہ کیوں جا رہے ہیں کیا. اب اس میں بھی ویسے جیسے ابھی کسی نے کہا نا کہ بہت سارے لیئرز ہیں, کہ اب اگر ایک لڑکی شادی ہو کے چلی جائے, میں کہہ نہیں سکتی کہ وہ کس اس میں آتا ہے, کہ آیا وہ اپنی خوشی سے جاتی ہے یا بھائی چونکہ شوہر وہاں ہے, تو اس لیے لیکن یہی چیز ہے, کیونکہ آئی تھنک یو کانٹ جنرلائز تھنگ, ہر ایک اتنے فرق ہے
اپنے بالکل
بہت
الگ الگ
انڈیویجولائز ہو جاتا
بالکل.
ہے.
تھینک یو مسز مصطفیٰ. اب وی ہیو ٹو کنکلیوڈ دس سیشن. آخر میں صحبہ جو ہیں وہ دکھانا چاہ رہی ہیں آپ کو اپنے یہ میگزین, تو آپ یہ دیکھ لیں.
So these are the two
اور
books.
بکس, ہاں بالکل, if you want to
So they
say
are art catalogs and they are on sale at Liberty. And I think they have a discounted price at, and I'm not trying to make money. ہمیں تو پیسہ نہیں مل رہا ہے, but I just feel so proud of the books, so I just want to share them. کہ اگر آپ لوگوں کو موقع ملے تو please look through them, get them if you want. This is a photograph by a Mexican artist on the US-Mexico border. اور یہ تصویر جو ہے یہ انڈیا بنگلہ دیش بارڈر کی تصویر ہے, فرام نو مینز لینڈ.
بالکل, شکریہ صحبہ. اینڈ آئی مسٹ تھینک آل دی پینلسٹ, صحبہ, نور فیر, نائلہ, تہمینہ, اور آپ سب کا شکریہ. اور ود دس وی کنکلیوڈ دس سیشن. بہت شکریہ.